Hello, 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 hello. When I hear people say there's truth in all views as pertaining to eschatology, I get the feeling that it's said in frustration, a sort of throwing up your hands in defeat. If you look at what Hal Lindsey has written, none of it's ever come true. It's always back to the drawing board for another tweaking session. After over 1900 years of such wrangling, people are now saying there's truth in all views. Not because all views have snippets of isolated truth, but because people have had enough. They conclude that eschatology is a mystery which we will never know the truth about this side of eternity. We'll never be able to nail it down one way or the other. Then to cap it off, they say that's the way God must have intended for it to be. Many who straddle the truth in all views fence have never heard of past fulfilled interpretation of Bible prophecy, which for the most part doesn't keep going back to the drawing board for tweaking sessions every few years. I'm not saying that people readily embrace the past fulfilled viewpoint upon the first hearing about it, but paradigm shifts never come easy, but you can look into it. What I am saying is that there is a scripturally faithful viewpoint of eschatology that doesn't breed the eventual truth in all views attitude. In his Olivet Discourse, Jesus made it clear when the fulfillment of the tribulation, his coming, and the end of the age would be. The historical markers can hardly be missed. For instance, he said, "When you therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place." There's no holy place today. There's no temple in Jerusalem today. But there was one at the time of Jesus. Jesus said, "Then let them which be in Judea flee to the mountains." Today there is no Judea, but there was at the time of Jesus. He said, "Then let them which be on the housetop not come down to take anything out of the house." Today going up on the housetop is not a prevalent custom, even in Israel. But it was at the time of Jesus. In Acts 10, verse 9 says, "On the morrow, as they went on their journey and draw nigh unto the city, Peter went up on the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. He said, But pray ye that your flight not be in winter, neither on the Sabbath day." Yes, some Jews and other religions still practice Sabbath observance today in Israel and in the rest of the world. But at the time of Jesus, Sabbath observance was the law of the land. This has a first century feel to it. What Jesus emphasized most to his disciples was that Jerusalem would soon be compassed with armies. In Luke 21:20, and desolate before that generation had passed. In verse 32, this desolation was the tribulation of those days, which Jesus directly linked his coming and the end of the age to. This is a great historical marker here. Jerusalem was compassed by the armies of the Roman general Cestius Gallius in AD 66, and Vespasian in AD 67, and Titus in AD 70. The armies of Titus, taken from all over the empire, desolated and burned Jerusalem and the temple. In the end, 1.5 million Jews were perished, and hundreds of thousands were carried away into captivity, exactly as Jesus predicted would happen within the time frame restrictions of this generation, which he spoke. In light of this clear first century context for the Lord's coming, I must ask you, how could there be truth in all views? Folks, one cannot exegete his view consistently and then has to keep tweaking it due to failed predictions every few years on top of that. It's no wonder he eventually throws up his hands in the air and says, there's truth in all views, or God intended for it to be a mystery. 1 Timothy 3:16 says that all Scripture is profitable for doctrine. The Lord's teaching could not have been any clearer. The question is, are we willing to take Jesus at His word and adjust our understanding of the details accordingly? I thank you. Ahead of time. Hopefully.